Hi, Premier. Just wanted to ask you about an emergency room doctor who's saying that over the last couple of weeks, a number of the people coming to clinic in Whistler were from out of province. That raised concerns in that community about the ability to support people's needs there, and she wondered if a travel ban is something that could be done. I know a few weeks ago you spoke about that you were going to have a conversation with other premiers. Just wondering how that went and if there are other more stricter measures that maybe could be put in place for Whistler.
Well, thank you for the question. And it's not just Whistler, it's all of British Columbia. We have open borders within Canada. Of course, we were first in line back in March to call on the federal government to close our international borders, and I think we've all benefited from that. We do have challenges, though, when it comes to mobility within Canada. We're getting further legal advice on that. We'll be talking about it actually later today or tomorrow as part of the retreat that I referred to in my opening remarks. But to the ER doc and to other British Columbians, I agree with you that on the surface, it would seem an easy thing to do to just tell people not to come here. That's not part and parcel of who we are as Canadians. Other premiers have expressed a similar view. We want to make sure people stay home, stay in place until we get through this. That's been my call. That's been the call of Dr. Henry and Minister Dix for some time now. And I've appealed to other provincial leaders to make the same case, and they're doing that. But despite that, British Columbians, Canadians are free to travel within the borders of Canada. The exception would be the bubble zone that was put in place in the Maritimes. And I just want to say, for context, the Maritimes population is not as large as that of British Columbia. So there's only a few ways in and out, and it's easier to manage than it would be here in BC. And so again, we're looking at some legal advice later this week, and I'll have more to say on that, Binder, probably early next week.
Binder, do you have a follow-up?
I do. Premier, just wanted to ask you about the recovery benefit. The website was overloaded. People were surprised that they had to send in a number of documents. Now we are hearing of delays in payments. Do you feel, given all these issues with the payment, that you've fulfilled your campaign promise of getting this money into the hands of British Columbians as quickly as possible?
Well, yes, I do. There's always room for improvement, but as I understand it, 1.4 million British Columbians have been approved. $645 million has already left the Treasury and is in the bank accounts of British Columbians. We heard obviously some challenges at the front end, and I was mindful of that in year-end interviews with you and others. But I came back in early January to a pile of messages from people around BC, grateful that they had applied on a Friday and on a Wednesday there was money in their bank account. That's not the story for everyone, but that's the story of the overwhelming number of British Columbians. And I'm grateful to the public service, the professional public service, who worked extraordinarily hard to make sure that we could deliver the resources that were committed. And we've got the program open until June of this year, so there's plenty of time to ensure that if people are being frustrated by the process, that we can work with them and get through that. I'm very proud of the work that the public service has done, and I know that many British Columbians, based on the volume of mail that I've received, are grateful to have the resources. Personal story, my spouse was shopping in Langford, and as she was going through the checkout, she's familiar to people in the community, of course, and the checkout attendant told her that their $1,000 had arrived just in time because their hot water heater gave up the day before. So that $1,000 went towards hiring a plumber, went towards getting a new hot water heater for that family. That was a found money for them, and that was very important to their lives. And I believe that story is duplicated right across BC. Could we have done better? Of course we could. But I'm confident that the vast majority of British Columbians, at least 1.4 million of them, are pretty happy with the way the program rolled out.
Our next question is from Rob Shaw, Check News.
Hey, Premier. Wanted to talk about the speculation tax for a second. There were some numbers that your government put out showing that, I guess on the one hand, foreign owners of vacant properties have dropped significantly in the first couple of years. And then on the other hand, the largest group now paying the speculation tax are British Columbians with second homes. And I wondered if you could talk about whether that's the version of the tax that you want to see going forward, and if you plan on making any changes there.
Well, as you know, Rob, 99% of British Columbians do not pay the speculation tax. In fact, it's less than a percentage that do. And they can avoid that tax, as offshore buyers or owners have demonstrated, by either moving the property and having someone live in it, or renting it out. And so this is an avoidable tax. This is something, if you don't want to pay it, there are mechanisms in the marketplace then you could avail yourself of. You can sell the property to someone who wants to live in it, or you can rent it out to someone who's looking for a place to live. I believe that the overwhelming number of British Columbians that support this tax, because it does not affect them, and it addressed what was at the time a critically important issue. Overwhelming numbers of vacant properties and offshore investments that were driving up the costs for British Columbians. Those were our objectives. It was not designed to be a revenue driver. It was designed to be a housing initiative, and I think it's been successful.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
Sure. Can I go back to the comment you made earlier about looking for legal advice on the interprovincial travel issue? Could you just expand on that and sort of indicate what your goal in getting that advice might be? Is it your hope that you can work with the other premiers to restrict interprovincial travel in some way, or put in some type of travel ban, or what is your hope there?
Well, I hear from, not just from the media, but from British Columbians, that they're concerned about people coming from elsewhere when they're making sacrifices of their own. We saw a whole slew of stories after the Christmas break about politicians who chose to travel, not from British Columbia, or not certainly from the Legislative Assembly, but right across the country. And that led to a firestorm of frustration and anger, because Canadians and British Columbians are making sacrifices. And one of those sacrifices is staying close to home, not traveling to see loved ones, not going to tend to what would have been traditions or pressing matters, the loss of life of a loved one in another part of the country. So it's been clear that this is a public interest, and we have been trying our best to find a way to meet that objective of the public in a way that's consistent with the Charter and other fundamental rights here in Canada. And so legal advice is what we've sought, and we'll take a look at it over the next couple of days. And if there is, I want to, I guess, to answer your question directly, Rob, I want to put this either to rest so that British Columbians understand that we cannot do that, and we're not going to do that, or there is a way to do it, and we're going to work with other provinces to achieve it. But people have been talking about it for months and months, as you know, and I think it's time we put it to bed finally and said either we can do it, and this is how we would do it, or we can't, and this is the reason why. That's the objective over the next couple of days.
Our next question is from Jack Knox, Times columnist.
Hey, Jack. Happy New Year.
Okay, this is somewhat related. Should non-essential international travel be not just discouraged, but banned outright?
Well, we have made it as clear as we possibly can to British Columbians that they should stay here. And if they do leave Canada, they will be subjected to quarantine upon return. But again, Jack, I think that we've tried our best to appeal to people's common sense, their understanding, and their commitment to their community by making sacrifices about, for example, non-essential international travel. And those are individual choices at the end of the day. There is no prohibition in terms of a legal requirement, but there is, I believe, a moral obligation that British Columbians have to work with each other. Your neighbors are making sacrifices. You should be as willing as they are to make those sacrifices as well. But I don't know how we can direct people to not travel. If they choose to do that, they will have to live by the requirements of quarantine on the return. And that's the system we have in place today to protect British Columbians and Canadians. And I'm confident that it's working as effectively as it can.